You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
The views expressed by the individuals during this broadcast are their own opinions, and they may not be the same as those of their group or other organizations they may be involved with.
Oh yeah, baby, that's lovely.
We now wander off the beaten path with an update from the Reefer Reporter.
Hello and welcome to the Reefer Reporters. It's Pottober the 3rd, 2022, and we're live here on the Pace Radio Network's YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook locations. Good morning, Rev Kelly. How are you doing today?
Good morning. I like Pottober and Croptober.
Yes.
I like that we always change it to.
That's right, exactly. I'll use both terms throughout the month of October.
Yeah.
Because that's what it is.
Yeah. Right? I like this month. This month is a spooky month. It's
that's
the spooky
right.
month.
Yes, yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
It's a good one, that's for sure. So, Rev Kelly, did you wake up with frost as I did this morning?
No, you were saying that you had frost this morning. Like, was it actually like on your plants, like on your cannabis plants?
The time I got out there, they were dried off. Oh. But I can tell you, wherever I saw shade this morning, I saw frost.
Oh, okay. Well,
that's
telling us that temperatures are dropping for Croptober.
Yes. Well, I think, just a little adjustment. Get used to it a little bit, but we do have some warmer temperatures in the forecast. So.
Yeah. Okay, good. Okay. I like that.
Yeah. It's not over yet.
Yeah. Okay, good. Good.
That's right. Anything new and exciting you want to get into before we get to the news?
We have another paint and puff at a retailer in Cavan this weekend. You feel like painting and puffing at the same time, Al? Or know anybody that does? Isn't that a neat thing? It's cannabis tourism, where you can like paint a cannabis picture with an artist that leads you, and it's at a cannabis retailer. We did it outside before. We're doing it inside this time, but you get like a cannabis treat along with it, and you get to hang out, and it's just a cool experience for cannabis. Right?
Yeah. Nice.
Tourism.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yes, that's right.
We talk about that all the time on the news, right? Cannabis tourism.
You sure do.
Yeah.
Actually, there was a news article that was just out on the High B&B.
Yeah. It's cool.
About tourism and stuff. So.
Woo, good. We love it.
Yeah. All righty. On to our first story of the day. This one comes to us from Leafly. The Supreme Court trial on homegrown ban reveals a bigger issue in federal cannabis legalization.
Yeah. In Canada, legalization grants people the ability to grow up to 4 cannabis plants per household for personal use, unless, of course, you live in Manitoba or Quebec.
Yep. The 2 provinces have banned adult use cannabis cultivation at home since the beginning of federal legalization in 2018. A man from Quebec is trying to get the province to reconsider. Janet Murray-Hill is challenging the ban on behalf of himself and others that may be penalized for growing cannabis at home. Way to go.
The ongoing legal battle began in 2019 and reached another milestone as the case was heard before the Supreme Court of Canada on the morning of September 15th. The hearing took place as an exception in Quebec City instead of Ottawa as part of a Supreme Court initiative to make the justice system more accessible to Canadians.
Murray-Hill believes that Sections 5 and 10 of the Quebec Cannabis Act are against Canadians' charter rights and freedom on the grounds that they directly intervene in the Federal Cannabis Act. Under the Act, Canadians are permitted to grow and possess up to 4 cannabis plants per household for personal consumption.
And he says that the federal law should take precedence over provincial legislation. In a court on Thursday, Murray Hall's lawyer Maxime Couren accused the province of creating legislation to stigmatize the possession and growing consumption of cannabis, saying that it undermined the values of the federal act.
Yeah, Guerin told the court, as he answered the questions from the 9 Supreme Court justices, that the Quebec government was really looking to offset or counteract the federal legislation. Guerin also told the court that the federal regulations seemed to grant positive rights to Canadians with regard to growing and possessing cannabis plants.
Mm-hmm. Patricia Blair, the legal representation for the Attorney General of Quebec, told the court that while the Federal Cannabis Act may render it not federally illegal to grow cannabis, it does give Canadians the right or entitlement to do so.
Blair noted that the criminal code is not intended to bestow positive rights, but to prohibit specific activities. Blair also stressed that the provincial legislation, including the ban on home cultivation, is intended to ensure the respective safety of Quebec's youth and its cannabis consumers.
Oh, protecting the youth again, are we?
Yeah, that's right.
Right, protecting them so we don't grow at home. This means that ultimately, according to Blair, the provincial legislation does in fact have the same objective as the Federal Cannabis Act, despite Murray Hill's claims of disparity.
The court also heard from a long line of interveners whose role is to advance their own view of a legal matter before the court and to aid in providing a broader perspective on a particular issue than those of the respondents and appellants.
Now, parties with intervenor status included representatives from advocacy groups such as the Canadian Cancer Society, Canadian Association for Progress and Justice, and Cannabis Amnesty. Now, from industry groups such as the Cannabis Council of Canada, Quebec Cannabis Industry Association, and the Attorney Generals of Saskatchewan, Alberta, Ontario, BC, and Manitoba, the latter being the only province in Canada where home cultivation is banned.
Yeah, well, there's only the two. The legal challenge dates back to 2019 when applicant Murray Hill, best known for being the creator of the parody website Le Journal du Moutrol, challenged two sections of the provincial cannabis legislation that prohibit Quebecers from growing cannabis at home and or possessing cannabis plants for personal use.
So the Superior Court sided with Murray Hall and founded both Sections 5 and 10 of the Provincial Act to be constitutionally invalid. In her ruling, Justice Manon Lavoie wrote that the sections infringed upon the jurisdiction of the federal government, which permitted the home cultivation of up to 4 plants per household and is solely responsible for the legislation of criminal affairs.
Justice Lavoie noted that while the province could potentially place further limits on home cultivation, it could not ban the practice outright. But the decision was overturned in September of 2021 by the Quebec Court of Appeal, which unanimously ruled the provisions in question to be constitutionally valid. Murray Hill then escalated the battle to the country's highest court. Way to go.
Goes on to talk about the trial could set the stage for challenging provincial bans in other provinces too, and talks about Manitoba, how the residents there will be most directly affected by the upcoming ruling.
A decision that holds the provincial ban in Quebec would essentially set Manitoba's own cultivation ban in stone. If the ban is struck down as unconstitutional, then many homes in Manitoba may get a little bit greener in the near future, to the likely chagrin of the Attorney General's office.
So for the rest of Canada, the consequences may be less immediately evident in day-to-day life, but Toronto-based lawyer and former Normal Canada director Corey Massad told Leafly that the decision rendered in this case could set a precedent that has legal consequences that extend beyond home cannabis cultivation in Quebec.
Now, a good example of this might be Alberta's Attorney General versus Maloney in 2015, a case involving car insurance and a conflict between provincial and federal legislation that has been repeatedly cited by lawyers and in intervenor factums as this case winds its way through the court system.
Sad says that Murray Hill's argument that federal law trumps provincial legislation has some validity and cites the doctrine paramountcy, which stipulates that in cases where federal and provincial laws are in conflict, federal laws will prevail.
That's the way I always understood it. Yeah. The conflict consists of direct operational conflict, which is impossible to comply with both federal and provincial laws, or an indirect operational conflict, whereas the operation of provincial laws frustrates the purpose of federal laws But that doesn't mean the case is open and shut.
No. In the name of the cooperative federalism, the doctrine of paramountcy has to be applied with restraints, that explains. The crux of the legal argument comes down to this. Does the Cannabis Act actually grant Canadians the positive right to grow and possess cannabis plants?
And she says, yes, I do think that it grants people the positive right, but cautions that the justices may not see it that way. Ultimately, the outcome is impossible to predict, she says.
What do you think is going to happen?
I'm all for it to allow it to strike down the Quebec law.
You think that's going to happen?
I look at it as federal law will trump it.
And it should. It really should. You think they'll keep it tied up for a little while, though, I bet.
Let's hope not. People are waiting to be able to grow, and okay, people are getting ready to harvest.
Yeah.
But there's still indoor growing season.
Of course, that happens
right?
all winter, and they should be allowed to do that. So I like what they said in the article. It will really affect Manitoba. If they say no, that'll solidify it for Manitoba. And our friend Stephen Stairs, he's always protesting out on the hill there and saying, help everybody be able to grow at home. And he's been doing that for a long time. So we're watching it fight on the other side of us too. Ontario is good.
Yes.
Quebec and Manitoba, either one, not so good.
Yeah, there's the Manitoba growing. I'm trying to think of was that campaign going on out there.
Yeah.
In order for it to, get people to be able to grow their own cannabis at home. It's legal in the country. Like, it'd be like a state or a province outlawing cars.
Yeah.
Well, cars are legal across the country, but we think cars are bad for us, so we're not going to allow them.
I wonder if you can make your own alcohol at home in Quebec.
Oh, I'm sure you can.
I bet you can.
But you can.
I bet you can grow grapes there.
Yeah, I bet you can.
It's so funny.
All right, and you make bread because we know they take yeast and they turn them into cannabinoids as well.
Yeah. Uh-oh.
All right, on to the next story. And this one comes to us from Bloomberg. They say, how Canopy Growth's retail exit drives home very, very difficult pot economics.
In the early, heady days of cannabis legalization, owning a licensed pot store was seen as an easy way to make money. Today, it's seen by many as a liability.
That sentiment was thrust into focus this week after Canopy Growth, one of the biggest and most capitalized cannabis producers in Canada, announced it would divest its 28 Tokyo Smoke and Tweed retail stores to OEG Retail Cannabis, a firm controlled by Edmonton's Kratz Group and Alberta's 420 Investment Limited, for an undisclosed sum.
Well, the divestiture represented another attempt by Canopy to turn itself around and seek profitability following a series of money-losing investments. It also offered yet another example of how fraught Canada's cannabis retail sector has become since the federal government legalized recreational sales of cannabis in October 2018.
Yeah, Krista Raymer, founder of the retail consultancy Veterine Group, says in an interview, the majority of these retail businesses were built off of a model that wasn't going to be sustainable when we started to see pricing compression, in addition to not being able to control the cost of goods. The retail business structure was largely unknown and didn't plan for the flexibility when we could see more competition.
Right. So Canopy bought Haiku Brands Company Limited, Tokyo Smoke's parent, for about $270 million in 2018 in an all-stock deal. But the acquisition's value, my article just jumped up. But the acquisition's value closed around $600 million thanks to a rise in Canopy stock's price. Now, Canaccord Genuity's analysis, Matt Bottomley, stated in a note to clients Thursday that he estimates that Canopy received around $20 million from the divestiture. That's not including intellectual property.
Canopy's decision to divest its retail operations largely seen as a positive step by the analysts who covered the company. Owen Bennett at Jefferies LLC estimated that Canopy's retail arm only generated gross margins of 15%, far lower than many of its retail peers. Piper Sandler's Michael Lavery said the Tokyo Smoke outlets that Canopy owned accounted for 40% of the company's selling and marketing overhead.
Now, in the case of Tokyo Smoke, scaling a retail environment and building a franchise structure is very, very difficult, Raymer said. Retail woes in Canada's cannabis industry aren't isolated to one company. Following a rapid expansion of stores opening across much of the country, there are about 3,310 pot shops operating today that had to navigate a steady drip of consolidation and closures. And we're seeing that all the time, Al.
Yes, exactly. In addition to facing pressure from nearby competitors, which hurts retailers' gross margins, cannabis shops owners also face onerous restrictions on marketing and the still looming threat of illicit operators that aren't beholden to the rules and taxes that the legal industry must abide.
Retailers in Ontario and British Columbia also face challenges obtaining inventory in August following a cybersecurity attack on the Ontario Cannabis Store and a strike by BC's cannabis wholesaler workers. According to an analysis by Stifel, the average private sector cannabis retailer in Canada made roughly $1.2 million in annual sales in February 2022. That's down from a peak of $9 million in mid-2020.
Numbers,
Yeah.
big numbers. Even popular store brands haven't been immune to the industry's challenges. Superette, the cannabis shop franchise vetted for its unique take on selling cannabis with style nods to Quebec's depanneurs, had to close several Toronto locations and sought creditor protection earlier this year. In August, the retailer was purchased by SNDL, a Calgary-based producer that has been rolling up retailers under the Value brands and Spirit Leaf banners. And earlier this year, SNDL Executive Chief Officer Zach George warned investors in a stockholders letter that he expects 1,000 stores in Canada to eventually shut down to market pressures.
Yeah.
So he's talking like a third of the stores
Yep.
in the country could shut down.
Yeah, I can see it. I can see it
due
for sure.
to market pressures.
Yep. There's just it's just too saturated. As much as I love it, seeing one store here and then across the street here and then up the street here, it's a lot, and you're not going to stay open unless you have something that's going to keep your customers coming back all the time.
Yeah, I think anybody who's opening a store now has to look for locations that are underserviced.
Yeah, for sure.
And instead of others. And who knows? Municipal election tomorrow. Maybe there'll be a new one come in January.
Yeah. We'll see.
Yeah. All right. On to our next article. This one from CBC. Headline says Ontario made $520 million from cannabis last year. So why do retailers say they're struggling?
The province of Ontario made more than $500 million from the cannabis industry in the last fiscal year, according to public accounts released by the government on Friday. But that $520 million is coming at least partially at the expense of struggling local retailers. That's according to Michael Armstrong, a business professor at Brock University in St. Catharines, Ontario.
About 56 cents of every dollar you spend at a cannabis store goes to the businesses, the retailers, and the producers. The other 44 cents is going to government in a way or another. Retailers and producers don't mind paying out money when they're making a profit, but when they're not, not when they're taking a loss. And there you go. That tells you right there, 44%, almost half of a gram of cannabis or half of every dollar spent at a cannabis store goes to the government.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Part of the provincial cannabis cash is coming from markups of about 31% of the provincial supplier, the Ontario Cannabis Store. It's charging the legal retailers. The dispensaries then pass at least some of that extra expense on to consumers.
Wow. The province's pursuit of cannabis profits is also making it tougher for illegal retailers to stay in business because legal buyers are probably paying more than their neighbors who continue to get their supply from the black market.
So Sean Cady, who owns a dispensary west of downtown Toronto, agrees with Armstrong, saying our cheapest ounce is about $100, and you can get that same ounce, about the same quality, from these black markets for about $50 to $70.
Really?
And that's according from the owner of Cosmic Charlie's at the corner of Queen West and Niagara Street. I think that's true. I think that's true. Yeah.
Yeah, the days of $250 for an ounce are gone.
No.
The public accounts were released by the province's Treasurer, Secretary, and Finance Minister on Friday. They show the Ford government ran a $2.1 billion surplus in the fiscal year that ended in March, in contrast to the $33 billion deficit that had been projected. Armstrong says the provincial cannabis revenues came from various taxes that are charged to local cannabis producers and retailers by the province, as well as payments that retailers make to OCS, which has a monopoly on the cannabis supply in Ontario.
Yeah. He said that he'd like to see that the province reviews the existing system with an eye to establish more equitable tax structure or tax schedule. Oh my.
Many retailers, especially in built-up areas where competition is heaviest, are struggling. Well, yeah, there's lots of people there trying to sell it. Armstrong says that they should not be expected to pay the same in taxes that more successful retailers pay. Huh?
Right. The idea gets a stamp of approval from Cady, saying, I think it's time they revisit the cannabis store taxation and start sharing a little bit more of the pie with the people that are trying to make the industry run.
Yeah. In an email statement, a spokesperson, Finance Minister Peter Bethafalfi, so the province says Ontario remains committed in its priorities for legalization of cannabis, including supporting the growth of the legal cannabis market and the displacement of the illicit market, protecting youth from exposure to cannabis, and providing access to tested and reliable products, they say.
Now, the OCS is committed to social responsibility, and in the first year of a 3-year strategy aimed at advancing cannabis knowledge, supporting sustainability and diversity and inclusion, it says the government will continue working with the OCS to ensure that its wholesale pricing model helps support a competitive market.
Well, it almost sounds to me as if they could lower their markup and government can lower the taxes.
Yes.
I think that can happen. There's some room to go down.
Yeah. I've never bought an ounce from a store. From a retail store.
And I saw a sign on a hydro pole that was for a cannabis store, and the price of an ounce was so cheap. I was just going like, what? Like, really?
Yeah.
Yeah. Under $100. Like, it
surprises me. Yeah.
I took a picture and I was surprised by it.
It's very surprising. Yeah. I think I got one for like $125 or $130 once, and it was really old, and you could taste that chemical taste on it.
The old taste.
Yeah, old, and the chemicals that they used. Burn the white ash. That's for sure.
I haven't, other than 3 pre-roll joints, I haven't bought any cannabis. As far as that, as far as flower and the thing.
It's hit and miss. It kind of really depends on what you're getting.
Yeah, it's a cross your fingers thing.
I got a guy. I like my guy. What can I say?
I like my guy. Yeah, I like my guy. Me. I you like my guy.
Yeah.
All right, on to our next story. Sarnia doctor wants health insurance coverage for medical cannabis use. And this is coming to us from the Observer. And I agree with him.
Yeah. A Sarnia Lambden doctor who has been researching cannabis as a treatment for dementia says he wants to see cannabinoid therapy for people with the disease covered by public health insurance.
Yeah, exactly. That's an injustice to me, the fact that they have to pay out of pocket for their medication, according to Blake Peterson, He's the founder of Greenlee Health Medical Consulting, has been prescribing cannabis for dementia patients in a long-term care homes in Sarnia, Lambton, and elsewhere in the province for years.
The drug doesn't help stall the progression of the degenerative memory robbing disease, he said, but it does help manage symptoms such as agitation that are often controlled instead with antipsychotics. Pearson said those medications can come with harsh side effects.
Yep. The cost for cannabis medicine ranges from $80 to $160 per patient per month, he said, while potentially more harmful medicines are covered. He says that it takes a real motivated family to allow their loved ones to use cannabinoids or to have it as part of their treatment regime.
The Sarnia Lambton treatment program, most, if not all, nursing homes in the country have people taking part, Pearson said, is also contributing to a growing body of evidence about cannabinoid use.
Well, I hope he's collecting that data.
Yeah.
Yeah. A cost savings likely needs to be demonstrated to gain approval for public health insurance, he says. I think it'll take more than that. I think it'll still be a slow moving, unfortunately. Yeah. I believe him.
Now, Pearson is a former lead with the Erie St. Clair Local Health Integration Network and is working to mitigate opiate drug dependence locally. And he said he's hoping to highlight the positives of cannabinoid medicine amid World Alzheimer's Month, which is September, and the challenges facing people amid COVID-19. He's working really hard.
Yeah, the Canadian Alzheimer's Society says cannabis research in general is promising, but there is no evidence useful for treating or preventing Alzheimer's disease, and that long-term use could be harmful and result in memory loss. Okay, let's get that right. Memory loss. They're worried about memory loss and people who already lost their memory.
I don't know. I think that kind of defeats the purpose. Yeah.
They say that our organization doesn't give any medicine intervention advice of any sort. The symptoms experienced by some people with dementia has been worsening amid COVID-related disruptions, they say.
Of course it would be.
Yeah.
Well, it's good to see that they're having this conversation.
Yeah, let's hopefully he can get that put through.
Yeah.
In order to deal with, patients getting access to medical coverage.
Yeah.
You know?
And I'm really glad they mentioned it helps with the patient's agitation. A lot of these people that are suffering from memory loss and dementia, they get angry and frustrated and can become violent.
I know. I've just recently watched that.
Yeah.
I can agree with that, and it'd be nice, for it to be, be able to reduce. If you could give a pill to a person to reduce their age, that anger and everything, they would do it.
Right.
So let's give them some type of cannabis,
Right. Some plant. They're giving them antipsychotics, which are making them sick and losing their quality of life overall. But if you give them a doobie, they might feel a little bit better.
They're concerned about the memory loss, and it's it's like being worried about what effect it's going to have a child's brain.
Yeah.
When a child is having seizures.
Yeah.
When a child is going through seizures, there's brain damage going on, but they're worried about the brain damage caused by cannabis. It's just,
they should be really thinking about what is happening with the cannabis in the forming brain, how it's actually adding to it. It's actually giving it superpowers. It's
Saskatchewan. Right? Yeah. University of Saskatchewan did a thing on brains and cannabis years ago. So.
Don't give it to the developing brain. No, actually give it to the developing brain. It's going to help that developing brain develop. But no, we don't want to do that.
On to our next story and last one before break. Headline from Leafly says, study asks 80,000 cannabis users when, how, and why they use the plant.
That's a lot. It's an app called Jointly. And the researchers studied information from more than 200,000 cannabis users' experiences to better understand what the consumers desire. Wow, this is so cool, eh?
Yeah, 206,000 in total that they did. So that roughly 140,000 recorded sessions noted the time of day, time passed since last consumption, physical activity, sleep duration, and hydration levels, hunger levels, and side effects. Another 120,000 included information on the exercise type, quality of diet, type of food eaten during session, setting, and the presence of companions. This data was crunched into a full report, which can be requested for download right here on that button.
Part 1 of the Joint Leads report released in 2021 found that 2 in 5 consumers reported increasing their cannabis consumption during the COVID-19 pandemic. Jointly will reportedly release a third installment of the report covering archetypes that wrap consumer intention, demographics, and desires into distinct categories. Here's what the data from Jointly's latest consumer report revealed.
Flower is the most frequently used product type, used in 60% of consumption sessions reported among purposeful consumers. Vapes, 24%, dabs, 8% are the second and third most commonly used products, respectively. Together, these three inhalable form accounts for 92% of consumption, according to the report.
Interesting. Edibles, tinctures, in beverages were not even noted. 8%. So it's saying flower is the most commonly used form for those who seek to meet certain consumption goals, but it's not the highest rated at delivering on the desired results. The study suggested it's possible that while flower is more popular overall, those seeking specific outcome prefer the standardization and sophistication of manufactured products.
As far as processed cannabis goods, beverages were rated very highly for helping consumers achieve their goals. That may be related to easy dosing, the ready substitution for alcohol or technologies, which shorten time of the onset.
Interesting. Boomers love edibles and tinctures. Okay.
There you go. You're asking about that.
The report found that edibles and tinctures are more often used among older consumers than among younger consumers. The data showed that those in the 58 to 76 age demo make up around 12% of the edible market and 3% of the tincture market. This is more than all 41 and under participants combined. Now, the report adds that across most goals, ingestibles like edibles, drinks, and tinctures tend to result in higher goal ratings than do inhalables like flowers, vapes, or dabs.
Now, of the recorded sessions, 50% were solo and 79% were at home. The authors added that common social use included companions, ranging from significant others at 22% to friends at 15% and family at 10%. Enjoying social experience with friends and enhancing intimacy with a significant other were the only goals that weren't mostly pursued on a solely basis.
Okay, so it says that most people use weed for stress relief. According to the report, relaxation and relief of everyday stress are the most common goals recorded by users of the app. Now, replacing other substances like alcohol, caffeine, or opiates was the least common. But interestingly enough, those hoping to replace other substances had the highest success rate across recorded goals.
The author said this could be because of the act of using cannabis itself defines success regardless of the outcome. The results show that beverages were most commonly chosen by those with the goal of replacing another substance, but concentrates were rated as most effective in reaching this goal, even though they were among the least effective of all goals. I would say I'm in that beverage. I'm not trying to get rid of beer. I don't drink beer, but it would be a replacement for sitting around and drinking a beer with friends. I'd have a cannabis beverage instead, right?
Right. And I know a lot of people are choosing that. But this is excellent data. It closes by saying cannabis doesn't magically fix every problem.
That's right. That's right.
It yes, it does. What?
We try. It tries. It tries. But yeah, it does quite a good job. We can't complain about that. I can tell you
that. Magically. I like that. That was
All
a great
right.
article.
Yes. Yeah, and it's good data to collect. And they
Yes.
went, a lot of people were involved in that. So
Yeah. That's good.
All right, it's off to break or go. All
Great
right.
time.
And Kelly and I'll be right back in about, 3 minutes and 13 seconds. You're watching and listening to the Reefer Reporters here live on the Pace Radio Network. You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
At Legacy 420, we believe in being different.
Experience the difference of quality control.
Our labs provide tested formulations for all of our products.
Experience the difference in trust.
Our customers can trust that we are following up-to-date COVID precautions for their safety.
Experience the difference in accessibility.
We're open 7 days a week. Please visit our website, legacy420.com, or contact us for curbside pickup as well as nationwide mail order shipping.
Legacy 420 values overall wellness.
Come and experience the difference of Legacy 420.
Pace Radio Network, by patients, for patients, and for those who want to know.
BMA Hydroponics has everything you need to succeed. Visit our hydroponics superstore at 404 Maitland Drive in Belleville and we'll show you how to grow your own quality cannabis for pennies per gram. We're open Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Saturdays from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. and Thursdays and Fridays from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. Call 613-967-9888. BMA Hydroponics. It's worth the drive.
The only way to go.
Hi folks, Scott from stfattiesday.com here, and we're absolutely stoked to tell you about our brand new program called Pass the Peace Pipe and our partnership with Legacy 420 out of Tyndonega. We are absolutely proud to be partners with these people. They are an amazing group that have helped so many people with their amazing cannabis medicinal products. And we are working together to gather funds to build the first ever Indigenous specific opioid addiction center here in the Bay of Quinte area on Tyndonega land. So we need your help. We need you to repost this video and go to our GoFundMe campaign, because on this October 17th, St. Fatty's Day, we are going to be starting the campaign where we pass the peace pipe from one side of the country to another to unite our country, to gather awareness, but most importantly funds to build opioid addiction centers across the nation, one build at a time.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net. Yep, you're watching and listening to the Reefer Reporters, and we're back from a medication break. And Rev Kelly, you saw that plant. Did you get your guess in yet?
No, but it looks like it's going to be a good one.
Well, I can tell you, it's growing. It's getting taller all the time. Buds are forming on it. And guesses are coming in.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
That's exciting.
We got guesses going on, okay. And I expect that there'll be more as time goes on.
Okay, I'm excited.
Yeah, and just we had some people over the weekend. It was it was Gail's surprise birthday party.
Yes, happy birthday.
Yeah. Her birthday's not until next weekend, but we gotta make it a surprise. Sometimes you gotta do things early, right? Yeah. So yeah, some people were over to see it, and I don't know if they guessed or not, but they were happy with what they saw. So.
Oh, cool. Okay, well, I can't wait to see how it turns out.
Yeah, exactly. Same here. Alrighty, we should get going with our first story of the return of the break, And I like the sounds of this headline, I can tell you, and that is because it says another study finds link between medical cannabis and less opioid use.
One of the best arguments for legal cannabis is its possible influence on the opioid crisis.
Yes. Cannabis supporters have suggested the plant's medical capabilities could help treat a variety of conditions that are commonly treated by opioids, which come mainly documented with many documented adverse side effects.
Now, a new study supports that view, showing that medical cannabis can help patients reduce their opiate intake while substantially addressing the condition that affects their quality of life.
Published in the Journal of Substance Use and Misuse, the study details results from a survey of more than 2,000 medical cannabis patients in Florida who were asked about their cannabis consumption habits and whether or not these have affected their pharmaceutical use. Yes, says Al.
A whopping 90% of patients reported that cannabis was helpful in treating their condition, while 88% of respondents said that the plant was important for their quality of life.
In the case of the connection between opioids and cannabis, the results were very positive, with 85% of those surveyed claiming that cannabis reduced their pain. As well, 79% of the respondents reported they stopped or reduced their opioid intake after starting to consume cannabis. Yes.
And in an accompanying press release, researcher Carolyn Pritchett explained why the survey findings should provide some supportive evidence for the benefits of medical cannabis and why it should be considered as a valid alternative for many conditions.
Yes, Pritchard says that if there's the option to instead use a medicine with less harmful side effects, including a lower risk of overdose and death, then it should perhaps be considered. Sounds good to me. But more research, including the studies that follow patients over time, is needed before substituting opioid painkillers for medical cannabis becomes a commonplace.
Now, the study joins a body of others signaling the positive aspects of medical cannabis. Aside from treating a variety of conditions, the side effects associated with cannabis appear to be nowhere near as risky as the ones that have been linked with opiates over the past decades.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And you can put me on the list of people who were avoided opioids because of cannabis.
There you go.
Yeah. I've had only prescriptions for opioids while I've been hospitalized.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
When I'm not in the hospital, I'm not no opiates. It was something I was against.
Right
from the beginning. All 20 years ago, I said no. It's got to be an alternative, and I went looking. And just so you know, the next story up says real people that we could care about are being exploited.
It's a long article, and I'm really shocked.
Yeah, we always have, there's always stories, there's good and there's bad stories about within the cannabis community and things happen. This one, it sounds very abusive.
Yep, and it opens up with 3 women huddled under a sheet of plastic in southern Oregon in a greenhouse. So we're talking about Oregon here.
Yeah. Outside, state, federal, and county law enforcement were raiding the massive unlicensed cannabis farm where the woman had worked for 2 months. Officers shouted into megaphones, marching through the farm, cutting tents open as they went. Isabel, who's 51, recalled. The cops were very aggressive. They didn't care if there were people inside. Before they were done, the officers would uncover 6,000 pounds of processed cannabis, over 72,000 cannabis plants, and more than 200 workers, both documented and undocumented, who were detained for questioning and then released.
Wow, but they wouldn't find the three women, afraid that the officers might inadvertently bulldoze the greenhouse with them inside. The women were just as fearful of being discovered without legal work documents. So, as the tumult continued around them, they slipped away across the river and found refuge on a nearby farm.
In the July interview with Politico, the two women and Isabel's 30-year-old daughter, Maria, described a nearly 2-year-long ordeal of entire labor on the cannabis farms throughout southern Oregon. The conditions were often deplorable. The women slept in tents, washed their dishes with hoses, used overflowing portable toilets, and ate mostly rice cooked under tarps. There was often no electricity or potable water. The men working alongside them minced them with sexual aggressive remarks and getting paid the wages they hoped to send back to the family in Mexico, with the exception, not the rule.
Wow. Wow. This is just in Portland, Oregon, where we talk about, how forward thinking they are with their cannabis laws. And this is what's happening on one of their cannabis farms, and probably many. So this one was called, she said that she slept with one eye open. It was called the Q Bar X Ranch, and was at least the 9th farm that the women had worked at. And the second, where they said that they were held prisoner by men with rifles, forbidding them to leave, even to go to the grocery store or seek medical help. As with other weed farms, or cannabis farms, they learned about the job from a woman they refer to as Constratista, who raved about the pay and assured them that the farm was licensed and produced federal legal hemp, not cannabis. Once the women showed up to the new farm, she disappeared.
They never sought help because they were afraid. If they spoke to the police, she worried that maybe it's bad to be working on it and they get to lock me up. Maria is a U.S. citizen, but Licia and Isabel are undocumented workers. As for cartels that ran the grow operations, the women believed they'd extract revenge on the relatives back in Mexico. We were worse than prisoners, Isabel says.
Whew. My goodness. Now, if you buy cannabis legally somewhere in the U.S., there's a very good chance that it was grown by people like Isabella, Maria, and Leticia. The women exist in one of the deepest cracks in the U.S. labor law, undocumented agricultural workers at an off-the-books worksite in an illegal industry. Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, legalization was supposed to squelch the illicit market. Instead, it's thriving in places like Southern Oregon, where illegal cannabis farms are camouflaged beside their legal counterparts and ship their unregulated and untested cannabis to states as far away as New York and Florida. Undocumented workers on such farms face unsanitary working conditions, exposure to illegal pesticides and chemicals, rampant wage theft, and the threat of violence.
So there's a United Farm Workers Organization, and there's one of the workers there talking about how there's abuse that's been documented. 19 states have legalized recreational cannabis since 2012, but the illicit market in the U.S. has only slightly diminished. A 2022 report by Whitney Economics estimated that 34.4 million pounds of illegal cannabis products, from flower to vapes and edibles, will be sold in the U.S. this year.
You say this, that's a lot. They say this is not just a theoretical problem of neighborhoods that nobody's ever seen before, complaining about the unsavory characters. State Rep Pam Marsh chaired the bipartisan task force addressing issues related to illegal cannabis production. This is actually a situation in which real people that we care about are being exploited.
Agricultural workers lack many of the legal protections of other industries, like the right to collectively bargain and pay regulations. And this sounds like, if it's all the way, the Mexican workers all the way from home, where are they going to get those rights? They're just going from one farm to the next.
Yeah, it sounds like. Between January 2021 and August of 2022, Jackson County Sheriff's Department in Southern Oregon reports coming in contact with 249 workers on 27 unlicensed cannabis growers, and those workers were documented and undocumented. The Sheriff's Department is neighboring Josephine County, where Q-Bar X Ranch is located and reported 344 workers detained between February of 2021 and July of 2022 at 26 different farms.
Wow.
A lot of workers.
Wow. Talks about cannabis remaining illegal on federal levels. All employees, even licensed at the state level, lacks access to E-Verify, which is the government service that helps verify immigration status. So they just get up there from Mexico up into the U.S. and then they get lost in there.
Yeah, they just end up in the system.
Yeah.
If you want to call it that.
Yeah.
And obviously, it sounds like they're being baited by this lady who promises them all this stuff.
Yeah.
And is misleading them.
Shows the pictures of the dwellings, if we can even call them that, where they were forced to live. Abandoned, unlicensed cannabis grow near Cave Junction, Oregon.
Wow. Wow. Yeah. But yeah, the people, the humans, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
They shouldn't be treated like subhumans.
No.
All right. Ready for the next story?
I think I am. I'm so sad by that one. I hope this one's better.
Well, this one is about something that we probably would have wondered, a dozen years ago. And, could they ever collect more taxes from cannabis sales versus alcohol or tobacco? And according to the Fresh Toast, these two states received more tax money from cannabis than alcohol or cigarettes.
Wow. Now, with every new year, legal cannabis states prove that the plant is a good source of income. In the fiscal year of 2022, the states of Washington and Colorado have more revenue from cannabis sales than from alcohol or cigarettes.
Nice. 19 states now have enacted taxes on recreational cannabis purchases, but the tax regimes vary quite a bit. Over time, states can collect a significant amount of revenue. In Colorado and Washington collected more taxes on cannabis than alcohol or cigarettes in 2022. And the year's not even over yet.
Yeah, we're just in October, beginning. Now, the report explains why cannabis taxes work differently than alcohol or cigarette taxes, which are standardized throughout the country. While 19 states have enacted a tax on recreational cannabis, there's no standard cannabis tax in the U.S. the way there is an alcohol tax. There's a cigarette tax and a gas tax. Instead, governments use these three different types of cannabis taxes: a percentage of price tax, a weight-based tax, and a potency-based tax. Different states use different taxes, and some states levy multiple taxes.
Tax.
Money, give me your money.
Colorado collected $353.7 million in cannabis tax dollars in fiscal year 2022, while Washington collected $517. By contrast, the state took in about $490 million from alcohol and $380 from cigarettes. So there you go.
So they're just taxing more cannabis. They're not really.
Well, it sounds like there are multiple layers of tax. So it's sort of like when you go to buy gasoline, and you know that there's tax and a tax and tax and tax. Oh yeah.
But the article makes it sound like there's more money being spent, but it's just more taxes.
Yeah.
Then they should tax more cigarettes and put more taxes on alcohol and cigarettes.
Well, they keep doing really that. Sin taxes, they call them. They say that just this week, a study conducted in Florida found that medical cannabis users are less likely to use opioids. Yes. Another one. Participants explained that cannabis treated the symptoms of the disease, anxiety, chronic pain, PTSD, and more, while also helping them curb and eliminate the use of prescription drugs. And as we reported in the last article.
It's a great article.
Yeah.
I like that.
No, it's that's good. The fact that it didn't say that the taxes that they collected on the alcohol and tobacco reduced.
No.
It just said that more cannabis taxes were collected. I'd like to see that the taxes was reduced, then we would know that those substances weren't being purchased as often, and maybe they replaced them with the cannabis.
I wish that was the case.
All right. What do you say we head to Germany? Because over in Germany, the finance minister expects cannabis to be legalized in 2023.
This is so exciting. When it comes to the push for adult use cannabis legalization, there's no place on earth that is as excited as Germany is right now.
That's because late last year, a new coalition government was elected in Germany, and the Traffic Light Coalition, as it is commonly referred to, made it clear very quickly that it sought to legalize cannabis for adult use and launch a regulated market.
Now, speculation has swirled ever since regarding how long it will take Germany to make this transition. And the nation's federal finance minister, Christian Lindner, recently weighed in, predicting that legalization would become a reality in 2023.
The comments from the finance minister, Lindner, came at a FDP state election campaign event in Lower Saxony, apparently in response to cannabis advocates that were in attendance and holding up signs with hemp leaves that read, "A bag with Christian Lindner."
That's very cool. Various other elected officials in Germany have also weighed in over the course of the last year, and the general consensus seemed to be that legalization may arrive as early as next year. However, it could take as long as 2025 to become a fully implemented reality.
Let's hope not.
Oh.
Some cannabis advocates are expressing frustration regarding the current legalization process in Germany, which is understandably, given the cannabis prohibition is the law and of the land when it comes to consumers in Germany, and prohibition is harmful, failed public policy.
However, it's important to keep things in perspective. Germany may not be the first nation to roll out a nationwide adult use industry, yet it is certainly the first to try to do so on such a large scale.
Only 3 countries to legalize cannabis beyond low THC and other national and at a national level are Uruguay, Canada, and Malta. Germany's population is roughly twice the size of all 3 of those other countries combined.
Really?
Wow.
I didn't know there were that many people in Germany. Really?
That's why we call this cannabis educational news, right?
For us
too. Always say you learn something new when you watch Reefer reporters.
The size of Germany's economy is more than twice the size of those other countries' economies combined. Unlike the other 3 legal countries, Germany shares a border with 9 other countries, many of them being home to their own large population and economies. Like, Germany has a bigger economy than Canada. Like, their entire, I would never have thought that.
Yeah,
wow.
I know, right? As alluded earlier in this article, Germany is not legalizing cannabis in a vacuum. Every lawmaker and regulator around the globe that wants to see cannabis legalized is watching Germany with a very close eye right now, as the push to legalize in Germany will largely serve as the guidebook for effects elsewhere.
That's a really good point. What will the legal age be? What will the personal possession limit be? How many plants can each household cultivate? Will social use be established? Establishments be allowed? Cannabis lounges. What should testing standards be? What will the business licensing form entail? How many offices and government positions will be needed to oversee the industry? They ask a lot of really good questions.
Yeah, and this is a sample of questions that have been completely vetted and sorted out. A lot of stakeholders have to be afforded an opportunity to weigh in, and some level of consensus has to be reached for every facet of Germany's future cannabis policy.
Yeah. Current legal nations are not good comparators, as Germany is a completely different animal. Canada is the only country on earth right now where anyone of legal age can make a regulated purchase. And of course, Uruguay limits sales to residents. Malta does not have any industry framework in place. And they're just walking around doing whatever they want. Even if those countries had models similar to Canada, they still would not be good comparators.
When
Germany this is huge.
Yeah, I wonder why they didn't. Well, there's a problem with our stuff, so hopefully they improve some of the things that we didn't like. But When Germany launches its adult use industry, domestic and foreign consumers will no doubt flock to retail outlets at levels literally never seen before in the emerging global cannabis industry. Germany could do a staggering rollout with possession, cultivation, and consumption provisions being implemented sooner than industry provisions, as they are far more straightforward.
Wow. I've just decided I'm going to get my children's book translated to German.
There you go.
Wow, that market's going to be huge, Al.
Yeah.
That's a big one.
Germany's a big place by the sounds of it. I never thought about it being, because look, Canada's so big. We got so much open land.
Yeah.
As a country. So
think about that, right? Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to ponder that all day now.
All right. On to our last story of the day, because it's That's right. Time for a mushy moment. And the headline from Marijuana Moment says, VA says psychedelic therapy not part of standard of care for veterans, but is closely following research.
An official with the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs told Congress on Thursday that the government is monitoring research into the therapeutic potentials of psychedelics very, very closely, but that treatment involving the substances is not yet part of the standard care for military veterans.
Watching it closely is better than not watching it at all.
Yeah.
Let's hopefully they do something about it. At a hearing before the House Veterans Affairs Committee, Rep. Colin Allred reiterated his interest in alternative treatments for veterans with post-traumatic stress disorder and other suicide risk factors, including MDMA and psilocybin.
Veteran service organizations like the Special Operations Association of America and Reason for Hope also submitted written testimony for the hearing, touting research into psychedelic-assisted therapy and calling for administrative reform.
Allred, for his part, asked Veterans Health Administration, VHA, a clinical researcher, Lisa Brenner, about the status of research in alternative treatments, given early studies showing that psychedelics hold promising potential to reduce symptoms of psychological distress.
Obviously, when it comes to preventing veteran suicide, we should be looking at all avenues of research of new ways to treat and try and treat veterans, the congressman said. Is the VA tracking these studies? Are there any plans for the VA to conduct its own research into this area?
Brenner said that it's an important topic and VA wants to be tracking everything that's happening out there. He says that we are watching very, very closely, both in terms of clinical care and research, she says. However, at present, psychedelic treatments are not part of the standard of care.
That being said, VA researchers are to be engaged in research around this. However, they need to be specific safety and institutional review board approvals to ensure that we are keeping our veterans safe, the official said. Where we are exploring these new interventions, these current projects are not funded by Office of Research and Development, but VA is engaged and watching closely.
Allred asked if VA needed congressional approval to facilitate the research or if it was an administrative matter, and Brenner said that she would take that back to VA for the record. This exchange comes almost exactly 1 year since Allred and Brenner had virtually the same discussion in the same committee. Kelly. That's not good.
No, they're quoted as saying recent trials with psychedelic-assisted therapy have shown promising results in abating or neutralizing a wide range of comorbidities in patients, significantly improving quality of life. That's the bottom line.
Yeah. And the FDA has designated substances like psilocybin as breakthrough therapies, which is good. The organization said that without full approval, veterans are unable to access these psychedelic assisted therapies because of the DEA. Yeah.
Wow. Well, it's needed. It's more conversation, at least.
That's right. Well, it's more conversation. It's needed.
Yeah.
And, hopefully they're keeping an eye on that and, in good. But when they say we had that same conversation a year ago, that
tend to speed up the conversations. But I like how they're having the same conversation with veterans, psychedelics, veterans treatments. So it's nice to know that they're making that position as aware for a while.
Oh yeah. Well, I know of a fellow, Michael Kraswitz. I know I pronounced his name wrong, but he spent years and years and years and years fighting with the VA, and still is.
Of course.
Over the medical cannabis and stuff. So.
Wow. Well, long process.
Well, what's up the rest of the week? Where can people find your book, so on and so forth?
Come find me, kellysgreenlounge.ca.
All right, find me there, and watch soon for the German version.
Yes.
Right. All right, from the Legacy420.com news desk and for a buds of BMA Hydroponics, Dr. Buck's bed and breakfast called the Doobie Inn, the Camelford Lifestyle Shop, and Legacy420.com. That's our Reefer report for Croptober the 3rd, 2022. And don't forget, if you miss our live shows, catch the podcast afterwards, okay? Until the next time, as I said, don't forget to educate, medicate, and do not incarcerate.
Oh, yeah, baby. That's lovely.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
The views expressed by the individuals during this broadcast are their own opinions, and they may not be the same as those of their group or other organizations they may be involved with.
BMA Hydroponics has everything you need to succeed. Visit our hydroponic superstore at 404 Maitland Drive in Belleville, and we'll show you how to grow your own quality cannabis for pennies per gram. We're open Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Saturdays from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. and Thursdays and Fridays from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. Call 613-967-9888. BMA Hydroponics. It's worth the drive.
The only way to go.
At Legacy 420, we believe in being different.
Experience the difference of quality control.
Our labs provide tested formulations for all of our products.
Experience the difference in trust.
Our customers can trust that we are following up-to-date COVID precautions for their safety.
Experience the difference in accessibility.
We're open 7 days a week. Please visit our website, legacy420.com, or contact us for curbside pickup as well as nationwide mail order shipping.
Legacy 420 values overall wellness.
Come and experience the difference of Legacy 420.
Did you know that the Pace Radio Network isn't just a radio network? That's right, because most, but not all of our programming is now done via video and is then podcasted at paceradio.net. So if you want to watch our programming, you'll find us on the Pace Radio Network's Facebook page, plus the show's own page, and you'll find us live on the network's YouTube channel. And don't forget, you can find it all, video and audio, at paceradio.net.
Enjoy the buzz of legalization with Campbellford Lifestyle Shop. From lights to plant nutrients, books, consumption accessories, and more, we've got all your basics to grow or consume cannabis. Visit our info center or take a look at our piercing services and body jewelry, now available in-store through Campbellford Lifestyle Shop, 17 Bridge Street West, Campbellford.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.